Here is a belief that keeps a lot of working professionals out of real estate investing. They think there is only one way to do it, which is to save up a large down payment, buy a rental property, become a landlord, then collect rent. And that path feels too complicated or too risky right now. So you wait. You keep saving money and you keep doing your research. And the decision never actually gets made. But what if the real problem is not your finances? Is that nobody has clearly explained the two distinct ways someone like you who's got a full-time job can get into real estate, and which one actually fits your personal situation. And that's what this video is about. Okay, but before all that, if we've never met before, my name is Ernest. I'm a tech professional, a United States Air Force veteran, self-made millionaire, and real estate investor who owns multi-million dollars in residential real estate. I built my financial foundation while working a full-time job, and everything I share on this channel is designed to help working professionals make clear, more confident financial decisions. So let's get into it. Here is what we're covering today. There are two solid ways to invest in real estate. The first is the traditional investing in single-family homes. The second is a strategy called house hacking. We are going to walk through how each one works, what it actually looks like for a first-time investor, and most importantly, how you can decide which one fits your personal situation. And so by the end of this video, you will have a clear enough picture to stop researching and start moving in one direction. Alright, so let's start with the most familiar way to invest in real estate: the traditional investing in single-family homes. The concept is exactly what it sounds like. You purchase a residential property and you don't live in it. You place a tenant and the tenant pays rent every month. The rent covers your mortgage, taxes, insurance, and your operating costs. And what is left over is your cash flow. What builds over time is your equity, through principal paydown and through appreciation as the property grows in value. The reason this worked for generations is because the strategy is very straightforward. Your investment and your personal life stay completely separate. You don't share your personal space with anyone, and you don't change how or where you live. Let's think about what that looks like for a first-time investor. Someone with a stable income and savings who has been sitting on the decision for months finally identifies a property, secures financing, purchases the property, and places a tenant. Now they own an asset that is generating income and building equity. Over time, the mortgage gets paid down, the property value goes up, and the investor's wealth looks way different compared to when they started. A single property is a great starting point in building wealth. Buy a property or two every year or every few years and your wealth, retirement, and passive income you receive is going to be absolutely life-changing. This strategy does not require you changing your career, building a side hustle, or any significant change in your life. You simply buy properties and let them build wealth for you in the background. And if you have capital ready to deploy, want a clean investment that does not affect your day-to-day life, and are looking to build a whole real estate investing business alongside your career and your current living situation, the traditional single-family rental is the most direct way to get there. Now let's talk about the second way to invest: house hacking. Because this one changes the conversation entirely for a lot of people. Alright, but if you haven't heard of this strategy before, let me explain. House hacking is the strategy of purchasing a multi-unit property, living in one of the units yourself, and renting out the remaining units to tenants. The concept sounds simple, and it is, but there are significant differences compared to traditional investing that we just talked about. Because you are living in the property, it qualifies as a primary residence and makes you what we call an owner-occupant. That single distinction opens up financing options that are more accessible and more favorable than what is available to someone buying a traditional investment property. That means lower down payment requirements, better interest rates, and easier qualification standards all become available simply because you are an owner-occupant. What this means for you is that most of the reasons that make it difficult to buy an investment property become way more manageable. And this is not just on the financing side. The rent you receive from your tenants offset all or a meaningful portion of your monthly housing costs. And if you do it correctly, the monthly payment you pay out of pocket to live in your own property is less than what you were paying in rent before, or best case scenario, you actually get to live in your property for free, completely eliminating your housing expense, and acquired an income-producing asset. And that combination is difficult to replicate through any other single financial decision available to anyone. Alright, so let's dive into it a little bit deeper so you can fully understand it. Say you are someone who is currently renting a house or an apartment, consistently paying rent every month with nothing to show for it after paying rent for years. Then you decide to buy a duplex. You move into one unit and rent out the other. If you analyze the deal correctly and bought the right property, your monthly housing cost significantly goes down or is completely eliminated. Now you're building equity and wealth through your property. And on top of that, you are generating rental income. Now you have made the transition from being a tenant to a real estate investor in a single move. And that is a deliberate, well thought of first step that many serious investors have used to build their foundation. And so personally, this is how I started my real estate investing journey. So when I was 27 and I was getting out of the military, I needed to move to St. Louis for a job and needed a place to live. And so thankfully, I have already started teaching myself about how to invest in real estate. So I decided that instead of renting an apartment, I would buy a 4-unit apartment building and live in one of those units. And so I lived in one unit and rented the other 3. What was interesting to me was that all of my tenants were all around my age. We were all young professionals starting out in our careers. We were all living in a very similar 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom apartment. But the key difference was I owned the building and they were renting to me. And so if you're currently renting and open to moving, and if you have limited capital for a down payment, or if you want to dramatically reduce your monthly housing expense while simultaneously getting into real estate, house hacking is definitely worth looking into. And it may not be the right fit for everyone, but for the right person, it is one of the easiest ways and the lowest barriers to entry to invest in real estate. Alright, so now let's talk about how to actually choose between the two. The decision comes down to 3 simple questions. First is this: are you willing to change where you live? The traditional rental keeps your living situation exactly the same, while house hacking requires that you move to the property that you purchase. That is something you really need to think about, and there is no one right answer. You have to know what's best for your personal situation. Second, how much capital do you have available and what level of commitment are you comfortable with? The financing options that are available to you when you house hack typically requires much less capital, while a traditional rental requires a larger down payment and stronger cash reserves. If you don't have a lot of capital to work with, then that kind of makes the decision for you. The third question is that what outcome do you actually want in the next 1 to 3 years? If your goal is to reduce your monthly housing expense while building equity, house hacking aligns with that goal directly. On the other hand, if your goal is to acquire an asset while keeping your current lifestyle the same, then the traditional rental is the strategy for you. Neither strategy is necessarily better than the other. They simply serve different people with different goals and personal situations. 2 people with the same income and savings amount could make completely different choices here and both be right. The person who owns their home and wants to start building a separate portfolio goes one way, while the person who is renting and wants to lower their housing cost while getting into real estate goes the other. And again, they would both be right. And so the homework for you worth doing here is that after watching this video, is that for you to sit down and answer those 3 questions honestly based on where you are actually right now. Your financial position, your living flexibility, and the outcome you need in the near term will point you toward one of these 2 ways to invest more than any amount of additional research will. Alright, so here's the bottom line. Real estate investing as a working professional is not as complicated as it seems to be. These 2 strategies that we talked about are the simplest and easiest ways that are proven, accessible, and appropriate for someone with a stable income and decent amount of savings. And keep this in mind, the most expensive thing in building wealth is not making the wrong decision. It is making no decision at all. And if you're considering to invest in real estate, see the link in the description below. I created a personal assessment for you that tells you everything you need to know before you buy an investment property. Alright, that's it for now. And as always, here's to your success. Keep learning, keep investing, and make your money work for you.